now the suspension has come down as Alvin Kamara is suspended. Alvin Kamara is suspended for the first 3 games. Lord have mercy. Let me get my words of 2023 after the Las Vegas incident. And we've been waiting for a long time for this to come down. And it's only 3 games. We'll get into the topic of, if that's enough, kind of what we feel about that. But they've got the Titans at home, the Panthers and the Packers on the road to open those first 3 games of the year. I predicted 12-5 overall just due to the fact of the cupcake schedule. Of course, I think my Saints are that good. But when you look at who they're playing, outside of Trevor Lawrence, they don't really have a reputable quarterback unless Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud really pops off early, or pops off at any point in the season to be competitive enough considering what they've got around them. So it kind of doesn't make me nervous in that aspect. So does this 3-week suspension, you think, impact the win-loss for the New Orleans Saints, man?
I don't think it's a massive impact. Again, you look at their opening schedule; they got a home game against Tennessee, a road game at Carolina, and a road game at Green Bay.
Yeah.
I say they probably go 2-1 in that stretch. I actually think they lose the opener to Tennessee and then win the next 2.
Yep.
And so I think for New Orleans, listen, I don't think 12-5 is crazy given the talent of the team. I don't think it's as talented as say 3-4 years ago, like where they were one of the best teams in the NFC.
I wouldn't
but
sit here as a diehard and tell you that.
yeah, absolutely. And listen, I've been as big of a Derek Carr defender as there is. I think I've said this. I think he's the 10th best quarterback in the NFL. What he had to deal with in Las Vegas.
Oh,
that's what I'm saying. He's that dude. He's that dude. But what he had to deal with in Vegas and / Oakland for that decade, on the field, off the field, the ownership, coaching, carousel, and players getting in troubles, it was kind of a disaster there. So to go to a stable organization, the Benson family, and obviously an excellent front office in general, and a very good roster. Dennis Allen concerns me. That's the only thing that has me holds me back from really believing this team. And that's he's a tremendous defensive coordinator. That's shown over the past couple of years when he was with Sean Payton before he got the job.
New Orleans in that aspect.
Yeah, he was excellent, and I just think for that's why we're at 12-5. But I'm with you. I'm looking at the schedule, and listen, aside from, I think Trevor's the only elite, or at least proven elite quarterback that they play. I like Goff. We'll see what we get from Justin Fields. There's a game against Kirk Cousins on the schedule, but yeah, it's Matthew Stafford, but that's late season, or the Rams even in contention by that point. So and again, listen, I think the NFC South is, at least in my view, without a shadow of a doubt, the weakest division in football. I mean, I saw a discussion on TV today. Could Baker lead the Tampa Bay Bucks to the playoffs? It's it's that bad. It's that bad. We're talking about Baker lead the Bucks. They were 8-9 with Tom Brady. I know he's a lesser version of Tom Brady, but that's still Tom. So I have today, it's between them and Carolina, because I think Carolina got it right at the head coach spot. We just see what we get from Bryce Young. But yeah, let's go back to Alvin Kamara. I do think it does make an impact. He's fallen off a cliff to a certain degree, given the contract he signed a few years back. He hasn't been quite the same player. But listen, he's still a very productive back. Did the Kareem Hunt deal go through? Because I know he left Indianapolis without a deal.
Let me look. And that was crazy too. Indy offered him more money just so he wouldn't step on the field and actually practice for us. I'm going to take a look into that. I was hoping that we signed him. No updates. Leaves Colts without deal despite reportedly getting offers. Second team he visited but didn't join. Yeah, he left the Colts without a deal.
So is he coming? The New Orleans thing is kind of off the table, or is there potential maybe they come back to the table?
Yeah, from what I'm seeing, they offered him a contract. He turned it down. They even tried to swoop in and steal him. Guess they didn't offer him enough. I'm hoping the Saints can make a play for him. I really do. I got respect for Kareem Hunt. Little 600-700 yards. I'm here for that.
Absolutely. No, he's a very productive player. But, listen, losing Alvin Kamara, it's something. He's talking about big losses before that. It's something. But again, I think like you said, their schedule is a breeze. Again, I think Tennessee beats them, then they win the next 2 games after that, and we can get them back with a 2-1 record and then see where they go from there.
Right, absolutely. And I want to go back and give a little bit of respect to the quarterbacks who are actually going to play, because we got Titans, so that's going to be Tannehill, Levis, Malik Willis. We're going to have Bryce Young, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Mac Jones, C.J. Stroud. So it kind of softens up. Then you get a little bit back into it. Trevor Lawrence, Anthony Richardson, more than likely at that point, Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins. So maybe kind of coming back around some. Then you get back into the Desmond Ritters, Jared Goffs, Bryce Young, Daniel Jones, Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield, and Desmond Ritter. So maybe 4 to 5 games on there, if I recall them correctly, that they're actually going to play a quarterback that could give them a run for their money, but I'm right there with you. I
Sure.
think it makes them drop the home opener against Tennessee, and really just due to Tennessee's defense, me giving more respect to Mike Vrabel than I ever have before, and I never
Oh, he's a great
disrespected him,
coach.
except for the fact when I thought that they weren't going to win, but maybe 2 or 3 games this year. Definitely had to get that correction once D Hop came over, and also with them signing DeAndre Hopkins, us not having maybe our best or second best offensive weapon behind Chris Olave. Don't want to talk about Michael Thomas because I don't care.
I was
It's
gonna
going to
say
be interesting.
that's been a whole situation for a while now.
Yeah, I didn't want to allocate money back to him, but it is what it is. Yeah, 10 games in 3 years. That's just how I feel about Michael Thomas. Glad I got the Kamara jersey and not the Michael Thomas jersey when I was in New Orleans for the first game. Anywho, I do think it makes us drop the home opener, so I will have the Saints going 11-6, falling down from 10-5. But from my record predictions, that still is good enough for them to go in and win the division and make the playoffs. Now, when you look at suspensions that have lined up in the NFL, just a few suspensions for the 2023 season. We've had obviously gambling suspensions anywhere from 6 games to indefinitely for the entire season. 4 games for PED policy. You even go and look, uh, taking PEDs, 2 games. Beating someone up like Alvin Kamara did, whether it was extensive or not, which the video does not look great.
No.
Went back and watched it today, 3 games. Betting on a different sport in the wrong location, 6 games, or in the case of Calvin Ridley, suspended indefinitely or at least for the entire 2023 season. And we know that the NFL, and they're referring to Jameson Williams in terms of betting on 6 games in the wrong place. We know the NFL has never been the greatest with disciplining players. And honestly, it kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit because I love the league
Sure.
so much and they don't have that discipline really in place for their guys. Do you think the suspension was lengthy enough considering Alvin Kamara's actions? And that comes from a diehard Saints fan.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the commission. I think Goodell is. I've religiously said I
They
think
just
Adam Silver's the
extended his
best.
ass too.
What's that? What's that?
They just extended him too. But I
Oh
will
yeah,
say he
yeah, yeah.
probably is. I like Adam Silver a little better, but he's better than Rob Manfred for the MLB. I will say
Unquestionably, yes,
that.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I'd take it. I think I'd take almost anybody over Manfred. But listen, I think Goodell's done a good job. Listen, I've always the commissioner's job is to make the game better and grow the game, which I think Goodell's done a great job of doing. You've seen with the international series, which is just we've had discussions. Hey, could there be an NFL team in London? Which I think could be a little
Right.
bit of a stretch, but hey, the fact that we are having that discussion shows you how much the NFL's grown under in Goodell's tenure. I don't think 3 games is enough given the gravity of the situation. And again, as far as not to go too deep in the situation, but I think with Alvin, obviously, I was a huge Kamara fan. He's played at Tennessee and he was very productive for us there.
Yeah.
Um, the thing with him and with anybody is, when you're in a situation where you're at a nightclub, at a bar or something, and somebody's, maybe giving
Heckling
you
you.
hell a little bit, giving you problems, like you just gotta walk away. Like don't
Right.
you are gambling way more, so to speak, than they are in terms of getting in an altercation. So that's got to be something that's on the front of athletes' minds and any public figures' minds, moving forward for sure. But I think that the thing that's is the most impactful in terms of suspensions is the gambling suspension, because we know obviously with legalized gambling coming in a few years back and these leagues now getting more and more involved with that, like
Right.
listen, we can have the discussion about whether players should be allowed to not. I'm always in the mindset, like, don't put yourself in the position where I can discipline you. And that's the thing. When you consider Calvin Ridley, who obviously got suspended all of last year, like, yeah, I forgot what the exact money total is, but he gambled. I think he was going to win maybe, I could be butchering this number, but like $100,000-ish. You're gambling, for that, as opposed to what you're going to make this upcoming season, which is far beyond that. It's tenfold, 20-fold of that.
Right.
So I think at the end of the day, it's not something that's worth risking, and I think it's definitely. I saw one player, I think for the Broncos, he gambled as somebody else using somebody else's identity. I think he's going to prison for it. So that's
Dummy.
yeah. You can't like I said, you can't put yourself in that position, and
Dummy.
it could, given how much things have changed lately with gambling, this should be a
Yeah.
warning for players. Like, don't put yourself in this situation.
Yeah.
Don't give the NFL the opportunity to suspend you. But
Yep.
in terms of the bit larger discussion regarding domestic violence, obviously, which has become a big discussion in the last decade or so,
Yep.
I think it's one that's a very important one to have. But the gambling ones really was stuck out for me. Like, if you're a fan, you want to go on, I don't know, Bet MGM or something, or FanDuel. Like, there's a different set of stakes for you than it is for a player for the New Orleans Saints or the Denver Broncos. So it's
Right.
definitely something that players got to look out for.
Right, absolutely. And if there's one thing that my lovely mother always tells me, it's don't draw undue attention to yourself. And I feel like that's something that Alvin Kamara possibly could have done because, like you said, when you're talking about one, if you're gambling on games, but two, having the gamble of just entertaining an outside heckler. And we've seen Russell Westbrook do it in the NBA. And when you see Alvin Kamara react like this to guys that are, continuing to heckle him, it of course spills over. He gets a few of his licks in, and his boys really just don't make it look well on camera at all. And don't get me wrong, Kamara didn't either, but you have to be aware the fact that, yeah, it was maybe only 100 grand for his medical bills, but AK, you make a lot of money. I want to say you are the highest paid running back or second highest paid running back in the
He's
NFL
up
right
there.
now. After the Saints signed him to that contract and, considering how he's kind of fallen off in terms of production, and I do think that is more of a byproduct of New Orleans more than it is Alvin Kamara. You still hate to see it for a player. As a fan of the Saints and as a major fan of the NFL, been watching for literally 18, 19 years now, excuse me. I don't think it was lengthy enough. And I've always had issues with how the NFL reprimands their players. They're very inconsistent in regards to the level of offenses and just how they really hand things out. Regretfully, I feel like 6 games at least felt like the standard considering how bad the video looks,
Yeah.
just what happened overall. I mean, we see Ezekiel Elliott, I think back in 2017,
Hmm.
2016, his six
2017. Yeah.
game for the, domestic violence cases. We talk about the earlier suspensions in 2023. Alvin Kamara got less games for physically harming somebody than basically Calvin Ridley, Jamison Williams, and some of these other players have got for, yes, gambling on the sport that they play in, which they know that they shouldn't do, but they view, I guess, gambling dollars more of a risk to the league than their players
Sure.
being on video physically harming somebody. And from an outsider looking in, that's kind of what I think. But I know the NFL is also a very interesting business at the end of the day. But this is why some people can't support the league. This is why some people do have the thoughts like me that they do about the NFL. Hope Kamara learned a lesson, though. Hope the Saints are still able to do well enough in this season. I'd love to still see 12-5 in us. Win the
Sure.
three that we don't have him with. I definitely think we will go 2-1 as we get him back for Week 4 against the Buccaneers from that suspension.